Do you believe that men can become women?
Ma'am, as the director of the museum, that's not relevant in this case.
It's very relevant. You've got men dressed up as women, and you have them on displays in front of kids. Do you think men can become women, yes or no?
So RuPaul's Drag Race, which is the upper...
It's a man. RuPaul is a man who dresses like a woman, literally.
Correct.
Wait, did you catch that? A sitting congresswoman just cornered the head of the Smithsonian with the one question nobody wants to answer right now. You have to see how this plays out.
What is a woman, Dr. Hartig?
As a director and as a historian, it's not my opportunity.
You sexualize the American History Museum, so this is a fair question. What is a woman?
So at the museum...
What is a woman?
We strive to represent and not categorize all Americans.
Okay. Look at the absolute panic in the room the second that question drops. We're talking about the director of the American History Museum, someone whose entire job is supposed to be categorizing facts and historical records. But the moment she's asked to define something as basic as what is a woman, she completely freezes up and dodges. Notice how she falls back on claiming they strive to represent and not categorize. It's a masterclass in political deflection, but it totally backfires when you consider the context of the specific exhibit they are debating. The tension here is off the charts because you can literally see the internal calculation happening in real time. She knows any direct answer is going to spark a massive firestorm online. It makes you wonder exactly how much of our core historical institutions are operating on tiptoes right now just to avoid getting canceled.
Racist. Let me be clear about something. The people that were here are the indigenous folk. And you know who ICE been rounding up? They've been rounding up indigenous people. The people that originally came, not the colonizers, but the original people. So what this is about is whiteness. Everything that this administration has pushed has been about white supremacy.
Okay, pause and just look at the raw energy radiating off her right now. She is absolutely going in, claiming that border enforcement is specifically targeting indigenous people and framing the entire system around a racial hierarchy. But did you catch the massive historical leap she just made? She's completely redefining the narrative of who built the country and who falls under immigration enforcement, basically throwing the term colonizer out there to completely shut down the opposition's argument. It's wild because she's essentially arguing that current federal laws shouldn't even apply to certain groups based on historical claims to the continent. Whether you agree with her fundamental politics or not, you have to admit this is a highly calculated rhetorical strategy designed to go instantly viral on social media. She's not just arguing standard border policy, she's throwing a rhetorical grenade into the committee room to derail the entire conversation.
What does he mean about the red discoloration in the deep, soft tissues overlaying the occipital bones? What is that? Translate.
So what that is the occipital bone is the bone in this is your skull. It's the bone in the back of your head, the directly back side of your head. So when he's describing these hemorrhages in the deep, soft tissues, it means deep in the musculature that holds your head in place, there is a red discoloration. Now, they're not describing any injuries to the skin surface, which would still be there even if he's decomposed, you would still see injuries, abrasions, bruises, lacerations, things of that nature, even with decomposition.
Right here is where the entire narrative of this incredibly tragic case takes a massive turn. We've all been hearing the wild theories flying around the internet, but watch what this chief medical examiner just pointed out. He's holding up the skull model to explain that the red discoloration everyone is panicking about isn't actually on the skin's surface. It's deep in the musculature. Pay close attention to how methodically he breaks this down. People were ready to riot, thinking this was obvious blunt force trauma, but he's completely dismantling that assumption. He explicitly notes there are 0 surface injuries, no abrasions, no lacerations. It's fascinating how a single anatomical detail can completely flip a highly emotional public narrative. You really have to look past the internet rumors and actually listen to the forensic experts when things get this heated. The stark contrast between the public outrage And the cold, hard science in this clip is just staggering.
That the United Cajun Navy are so forthcoming. The fact that they told us, we haven't heard from any of their local officials, that Nolan was found face down, fully clothed. Well, that's significant to us because the last time we saw him on the videos, he was without a shirt. So at what point did he put on a shirt? Somebody saw something. Somebody knows something. There were almost 300, 400 people. Somebody knows something.
Now watch how the attorney strategically uses the missing shirt detail to build a massive sense of suspicion. He's standing there, surrounded by community leaders, heavily leaning into the fact that local officials allegedly found him fully clothed, but the viral videos showed him without a shirt. It's a classic courtroom tactic being played out in the court of public opinion. He's throwing out the number 300, 400 people to plant the idea that a massive cover-up is happening and that someone in that massive crowd must know exactly what went down. Notice his body language. He's demanding answers and stoking the fires of a conspiracy without actually making a direct, legally binding accusation. It's highly effective public relations. But you have to ask yourself, is this genuinely about uncovering the raw facts of a chaotic day? Or is it about applying maximum pressure to force a settlement before all the actual evidence even hits the table?
Is about financial repair to the descendants of the enslaved Africans.
Say what you mean, so you can say, so people understand. Yes.
Reparations.
Yes.
I think this reflects a really broad effort by the Trump administration to reshape the way the nation's history is told so that this country does not have to pay Black people for the forced labor and the unpaid labor that built this country.
Listen closely to the framing she's using here on daytime television. She's not just talking about historical education. She is directly advocating for a complete financial restructuring based on ancestral grievances. She drops the phrase unpaid labor that built this country as an absolute, unquestionable fact to justify a massive push for modern reparations. What's really compelling here is how she ties it to current political administrations, accusing the other side of actively trying to erase this narrative to avoid footing the bill. It's a huge rhetorical leap, taking a highly complex historical debate and packaging it into a neat, highly polarizing soundbite for a midday audience. It totally ignores the massive, diverse wave of immigration that occurred after that era, but it's perfectly engineered to get the studio audience nodding along. This is exactly how complex historical nuances get flattened out for television ratings.
What we know is there were no fractures or deep tissue injuries according to this independent autopsy that was paid for by Colin Kaepernick. Also have this photo that they released. There was a spot on the back of his head that stood out and that they highlighted today. We're not sure what that means, but they did note this in that independent autopsy. They also talked about the fact that they didn't have the interior wall of his neck, so they couldn't really go through that portion of his body. And then they talked about not being able to see his lungs and figure out whether or not they were full of water. So there's still a lot.
Check out the bullet points on that graphic they just flashed. This is the independent autopsy that the family literally paid for, backed by some massive celebrity money, and it still came back as a totally undetermined cause of death. Look at the anchor's face. You can tell this isn't the bombshell conclusion the network was hoping to report. They are forced to admit on live television that there are no fractures and no deep tissue injuries that would officially suggest foul play. This is a massive blow to the online sleuths who have been treating this tragedy like an interactive true crime podcast. It's a perfect example of how the internet creates a guilty verdict before the actual science is even processed. The fact that an independent, privately funded medical examiner couldn't find a single shred of evidence to support the murder theories should be a huge wake-up call to everyone jumping to conclusions online.
Wyatt went and put his smaller boat in the water, which is the Palm Beach. He's an 18-foot Palm Beach, and Why I drove the boat from Fort Bayou boat launch to my buddy's grandparents' house, and that's where we all planned to meet up that day. And
you say we all, who you talking about? You, Nolan, and how many people are going to meet you guys there?
we had roughly 20 to 30 people coming on 3 separate boats with us. And so we were all following each other out there as one big group. You know, it wasn't just me and Nolan and a couple other of my buddies. There was 20 or 30 people spread out where we all met at the dock before, and then we departed to go to Horn Island. It wasn't just a couple of us. I mean, there were so many people, we had to split up between 3 boats, and we all left and all got there at the same time.
Pay attention to the kid in the camo hat here. This is the guy who was actually out there on the water, and he's completely shattering the media's timeline of events. He's calmly laying out the logistics, multiple boats, different launch points, coordinating with a huge group of people across the coast. This isn't the sinister, isolated gathering that the internet conspiracy theorists have been trying to paint it as. He specifies that 20 to 30 people were all converging from different directions. When you listen to his tone, he just sounds like a regular guy explaining a standard weekend trip that ended in a horrible tragedy, not a criminal mastermind coordinating a cover-up. It's incredible how a primary source account can completely deflate weeks of wild internet speculation. You really have to appreciate the raw honesty of just sitting down and laying out the boring geographical facts of how the day actually started before everything went wrong.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that's clear, because the statements that are out there made it appear that it was just you, Nolan, and probably 2 or 3 other guys, and y'all are the only ones that went out to this island.
And that's completely incorrect. I mean, Horn Island on the 4th of July is the most popular day to be on the water on, you know, throughout the entire Gulf Coast. I mean, everybody and their mom is on the water on 4th of July, you know. There's no telling. I mean, roughly probably 2 to 3, maybe even 4,000 people out there. There were boats lined up off the island. I mean, there was 3 rows of boats all the way until my vision ended, until I could see of people there was 1 row of boats, and then there was another row of boats, and then there was a 3rd row of boats.
This part of the interview is absolutely crucial to understanding the chaos. He just estimated there were between 2,000 and 4,000 people packed onto that island for the holiday. Look at his hand gestures as he describes the multiple rows of boats lined up as far as his vision allowed. This totally destroys the narrative that a small, isolated group of friends were the only ones out there and somehow managed to hide something in broad daylight. With a crowd that massive, surrounded by thousands of cell phones and random bystanders, the idea of a coordinated, secret incident becomes mathematically absurd. It really highlights how out of touch the initial online outrage was with the actual reality on the ground. When you have thousands of people drinking and partying on the water, chaos is almost inevitable, but it doesn't automatically equal a targeted crime. It's a sobering reminder that sometimes devastating accidents just happen in chaotic environments. Drop a comment below. Did the media get this completely wrong? Hit subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.